Seth and Anthony with Catalyst Design. Awesome to have you on Built by Insights here today. Want to hear, I said Catalyst Design, but I want to hear you guys tell us about who you are, your history in architecture, and about your firm, Catalyst Architecture Planning and Design, right?
Right. That's correct. Well, thank you for having us. We're very excited to be here today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
My name is Anthony Gengaro, and this is Seth Donnell. We are Catalyst Architecture Planning and Development. We'll go into kind of how this came into being, and we have a pretty interesting story. We met in graduate school at the University of Colorado, Denver, College of Architecture and Planning. We both received our Masters of Architecture there. While we were in school, we worked on a few studios together, and we had some real world experience in that studio. One of our studios was to design a home that would be built in Kit Carson, Colorado. And the strategy here was to provide housing for teachers that they were trying to draw into the school in that small town on the eastern border of Colorado. We worked together pretty closely on that project and came up with a design that, in a process that we really, really enjoyed. And I think maybe subconsciously at first, we both were interested in working together in the long run. From there, I actually went straight to work for a home builder in Boulder, Colorado. I introduced some new softwares to that team, and there was a contracted architect that was working in tandem with that builder, and we focused on custom homes and remodels in Boulder, ranging from 2,000 to 10,000 square feet.
Who was that?
That was Field West Construction.
Okay.
Dan Drury. I'm not sure if he's still working up there at this time. And then Lisa Larson Design. So I had worked there for about 6 months, and what had happened, I had some personal family emergencies that had happened. My father actually had a traumatic brain injury, and it threw me into a position where my father was a serial entrepreneur, and he had multiple businesses, and in order to kind of triage the situation quickly, I had to kind of assume the role of operating all those companies. I did have familiarity with those companies because I had worked for him in high school and I had known what he was doing for a very long time. So when I spent time doing that and working in Boulder, commuting every day from Denver, things got very choppy very quickly. So I ended up leaving the work I was doing in Boulder and going fully into nonprofit work in Denver. This nonprofit work was directly managing tax districts in the city of Denver, business improvement districts, local maintenance districts, working with neighborhood scale and doing beautification projects for pedestrian right-of-ways to effectively create economic development. From there, I also kind of opened up my own little firm in my basement, doing 1 or 2 houses a year. Really no marketing, just word of mouth and trying to keep that pencil sharp. And that led to Seth and I becoming reacquainted. Go ahead, Seth.
Yeah.
Tell us your version of the story.
My version, yeah. Put us on the spot like a couple. I'll even maybe rewind a little further. Mm-hmm. In junior high, I wrote a letter to myself that I was going to open when I graduated high school. And I said a few things in there, but the profession I said I had to be was an architect. So
interesting.
Lo and behold, I stuck to that, I guess, for better or for worse. Got an undergraduate degree, originally from Texas, so got my undergraduate degree at Texas A&M there. Moved up here for grad school. Like Anthony said, during grad school, we met each other, worked on a few projects together. I think we felt that we had a process that was very similar at the time. And the way we approached design and architecture in general, I think, was very similar. And just as well as being friends, we get along. I'm the calm one in the partnership, just so we all know. Yes. So yeah, we worked on a few projects in grad school. As Anthony said, due to some unforeseen circumstances in his personal life, kind of went our separate ways after grad school. I went more the traditional route, started working for different firms throughout the Denver area, during which I got my architectural experience hours, took my 6 exams for licensure, did all that fun stuff. Finally got licensed as an architect. Floated around to, I think, 2 or 3 different firms. The last firm I worked at prior to Catalyst, I was running the architecture department in a design build format. And so after a few years there and realizing I was kind of running accounts payable, accounts receivable, hiring people, a lot of things that a business owner would do, I felt like it was a good time to start thinking about that, because that had always been maybe a goal of mine, is to run a business, in this case, an architecture firm. And so reached out to Anthony. We started saying like, hey, we think this is a good idea. So after a few months of planning, we took the leap off the edge into small business. And that was 4.5 years ago now. So
yep. Yeah. Coming up on 5 years soon.
Yeah. So was that during COVID?
It was, what year was it?
That would have been just before COVID really affected all of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
But right about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. And so I love to hear kind of the personal architectural journey that an architect takes going to school. What would you tell a student at CU architecture about how to succeed?
Well, funny enough, I am an adjunct professor at CU Denver in the architecture.
So you get to tell them all every day.
Cool. Yes. Yeah. For better or for worse, they get to listen to me talk every day. And I teach the freshman design studio. They're just getting their feet wet into architecture. And a lot of their minds, they had an idea of what they thought architecture and design was. Maybe it aligns with that. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe they're having a crisis moment of what did I do? Maybe not. But in general, I tell them to be well-rounded, I think is one of the most important things. In their architectural journey, especially in education, they'll run across a lot of high theory, a lot of technical things, a range in between. And for me, I think both are important. It's important to understand the theory of space, layout, how a design comes together. But in order to work in the field, it's important to understand the technical side of how it actually comes together with details and materials and things like that. So for me, I think the most important thing is to be well-rounded in those areas. Yeah.
Cool. Good advice.
Yeah. I think that's great. Your lens coming from school, you get to see the caliber of the students that we see coming into the real world. And it ties into my perspective, which is a little bit different. My story was high theory concept coming out of studios where professors tell you, don't worry about the rules, push the boundaries, just do it and see what type of creativity you can come up with. And then going straight into the operations of a business, right? It's a pretty juxtaposed scenario where creativity can seem to kind of slip when the money and time and things like this start coming into play. So from my perspective, what is the best advice to give some of these students and young individuals? It's to really try to balance the understanding of operations, right? Understanding that you might be great creatively and you might have wonderful concepts and ideas, but manifesting those concepts into practice and finding impact is really the magic sauce. And you can only do that by understanding how the business operates, how adjacent businesses operate, the industry as a whole operating as one.
No, that's good insight.
Yeah, I would also add, I often tell my students, what we do as architects, we do many things. I often tell them we're generalists. A lot of people in the world think we're specialists, but we're not. We have to wear many hats. But one important one, especially learning in school, is balancing the abstract and the concrete, or the abstract and the literal. And so oftentimes we take things that are literal, inspiration from the mountains, nature, whatever it may be in the site context. We abstract that, make it art. So that's our artist side of the brain. And then we have to take it back and make it literal and concrete in a building form or a spatial form, right? So it's that balance of half of our brain is artist, half of our brain is engineer, and we have to flow through that through our design process. So that's what I often tell them is we're really balancing and living in that tension really, because you put an artist and an engineer in a room, I don't know that they're going to have much to talk about, to be honest, but maybe they would have an interesting conversation.
Absolutely.
And then honestly, with Catalyst specifically, that's kind of why I wanted to partner with Anthony, is because I feel like I have a good understanding of design, architecture, that side of things. But he had run businesses, right? I hadn't even taken really a business class. So
we thought about it right there at the end of grad school.
We did, and I said, no, I am done with school.
They were offering a MBA for one more year.
Right.
Get an MBA in 1 year, and we both looked at each other like, we should do this.
I tell you, you learn business by doing business.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I don't. I have a business degree, and I'm like, they didn't teach me this.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Totally. That's cool. Catalyst. So you guys came together. Your vision was to create this architectural firm. You guys like to use the word firm, right?
Firm, studio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say you're more boutique, or do you guys want 1,000 architects behind you someday?
No, I think the strategy is to remain nimble and quick. I think there's a lot of opportunity in business structure to create partnerships and agreements with like-minded individuals that create quick exits, but allow for the business itself to operate in the long term with a priority on keeping overhead limited, right? So from our mind, our collective mind, we really want to remain nimble. So, and keep that culture very tight. We want to know everybody we're working with. We want to have a personal relationship with everyone that's in this studio. And Seth, I think would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really ties into the name Catalyst. As we were talking about beforehand, that might cause some brand confusion because there's a lot of companies that are called Catalyst. But the reason we specifically chose it is kind of two-sided, I would say. We want to be a catalyst externally and internally. So what does that mean? Okay, so catalyst externally would be we want to be a catalyst for change in the architecture industry, maybe even construction industry as a whole, right? So can we be architects that aren't the stereotypical architects? Can we be architects that understand, what builders are going through, what other consultants are going through, and relate to that and be able to design maybe even beforehand, before we even reach those points, to say we understand we're never going to be a builder ourselves, but if we can have that mindset of, okay, we can put ourselves in their shoes and understand, can we be a good catalyst of beneficial change in the industry? And then internally as well, I think we've had different work experiences, some good, some bad, but we want to take the positive pieces that we've taken from our previous work experiences and culture and really instill them into our own firm. So can we be a catalyst for change internally too, of making sure our employees, feel valued, really like the work they're doing, because then ultimately that leads to a business and a model where everyone is on the same team and you can find a lot of efficiencies there as far as producing projects or whatever it is.
Culture.
Yeah.
Culture.
Our people.
Right.
It's like even before our customers, our people.
Right.
That's who that makes our business, that makes, Built by Krueger who they are.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so creating that's cool. What are you guys working on? Tell us what your elevator pitch for Catalyst is, right? And that was 2 questions, but.
Yeah. Well, no, you ask a great question. We've been spending a lot of time in business development trying to really strategize like a system that reflects where we're at or where we want to go. And it's almost funny and comical that, the more we try to create boxes for types of projects we work on, the more we find ourselves having to branch out or in response to a lot of lead generation that's happening naturally. There's a lot of need for kind of random stuff going on. I think people, as they look for opportunities, are branching out as well, development specifically. What are we working on? Like I've said, and what we really have focused on historically is single-family custom homes. That's really where the bread and butter was at. Over the years, we've definitely branched into commercial tenant improvement projects. We've done a lot of work towards multi-unit, but boutique, so nothing larger than really 12. We've done some conceptual and financial modeling for some projects in the 24-unit range. And then I think yesterday or this morning, it just came into our desk, we're looking at doing a school. So there's a lot of
That would be fun.
there's a lot of different stuff happening. I think primarily focusing on residential. That being said, it comes to mind now that I think we've had many conversations about how we really love the psychology of hospitality and the psychology that goes into creating the cool factor that creates virality. People want to go to the cool new restaurant. They want to go to the cool new commercial pedestrian shopping district. They want to go to these places that have texture, character. They feel human scale. And where we are now, we're responding to a lot of strip mall development that happened in the 80s and 90s that have come to the end of their life. And these property owners are recognizing that they're not so desirable as they once were. Developers are looking for that cool factor. So we're looking at ways in which some of these older typologies where it put the car forward and pushed the building to the back and really killed the pedestrian scale is no longer what's wanted. And then that can even branch into materiality, but I'll let Seth take a dive here.
No, like they're doing that with one of our outdoor malls at Flatirons Mall.
Yeah.
Right? They're scraping it and they're putting up like 500 housing units.
Yeah.
And then creating a shopping district.
Creating density and then filling it in.
I hope I never have to go to a mall again. Right?
So related to overall urban design, how it's going, the direction it's going, but also the projects we take on as catalysts. I think what Anthony is saying in maybe a shorter sentence is we go where the need is, I would say. I've worked at firms where they say, okay, we only do one typology. Maybe it's new build, single family home. That's all we do. And then we would have clients come to us that have like large scale renovations, but we'd say, well, we can't do that because we only do new builds. And I've seen that happen time and time again. And it's kind of that catalyst for change that I was talking about is we want to be where our clients need us. Like they're people with needs, they have families, So I think a lot of that is if a need comes in and we feel like we are experts in that typology or we can become experts in that typology, I think we're open to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's, for us, that's, you look at the aging housing market
Right.
and you say, okay, how can we really impact our community? And it's saying, okay, there's renovation. That's, improving these totally inefficient homes,
Right.
Making wonderful places to live out
Aging
of
place.
horrible 1987 architecture.
Yeah.
And we also build the single family. So it is that you got to be able to do both in our area.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just think there's a profound need for that. And we can get into what is sustainability. I think that is one piece, is renovating in place, improving what we already have, whether it be through a pure renovation or addition. And then in regards to maybe what I would call rebranding of these strip malls from the 90s and 80s, it's like, to me, it's almost, if I take, we had the food hall era where food halls are coming in. To me, that's a food court.
Yeah, it is at the mall.
It's a glorified food court, but we've created this character to it, culture around it. It's local business. So I think there's a lot of good attributes to it. But in some ways, these like strip malls, or how you were referencing Flatirons Mall, they could survive if you just kind of rebrand them, recurate them, I think. And that would also, in my mind, relate to sustainability. So you don't have to tear down these buildings that have been built and then put in the housing or whatever it is. But yeah, to me, it's a lot about branding and how you market it.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Where does Catalyst want to be in 5 years?
It's a great question. It seems to change every morning.
Yeah.
I think the common ethos is going to be, looking for interesting, challenging work. And I think this is in response to our everyday lives. The cities in which we live in around the country are struggling to keep safety and identity and connectivity, not just physically, but emotionally. And there's so much opportunity for urban infill and renewal that's happening in these cities around the country. And if we want to look at Denver as our closest metro, it's very, very apparent that Denver is a city of little neighborhoods, and each neighborhood itself has its own identity. And what Denver struggles with is truly connectivity between those neighborhoods. It's not just regional transportation, but inter-neighborhood transportation, and how economics is affected by that. You shouldn't need, before I get too far down a tangent, a car to go one neighborhood over to go to your grocery store. So in response to some of these kind of larger ideas, urban renewal, infill, renewal of identity, renewal of character, capturing the old, modernizing, making it more efficient.
I mean, that's a cultural change,
Yep.
not just an architectural change, right? Somebody's got to say, oh, I can walk the mile. I don't need to drive,
That's
right?
absolutely
And that's
right.
a cultural shift.
Yeah. So maybe Catalyst is more positioned in an urban planning format and in responding architecturally site specific within that master plan. It is a paradigm shift. It's cultural change. It's really trying to recapture that urban core or the adjacent urban neighborhoods to downtown. That's where I think a lot of what's good business, that's good business. I also believe that there's room for diversity in business, but I think that a lot of the things that people are finding too challenging to invest in will soon become really what has to be invested in. So I think prioritizing that type of mentality and focusing on our skills and the employees that we hire and bringing people into our culture that are like-minded and focusing on that prepares us well for what's coming.
Yeah, it's funny if my wife was here and she had to see me answer this question, she'd be like rolling her eyes because I never answer the 5-year goal questions. I'm kind of just like fly by the seat. Where are we going now? In general, though, like 5 years down the road, well, even if I look back in our past 4 years and I think through it and I say, would I have expected us to be here now? I'm not sure. I might have had lofty expectations or whatever it is, or I may have expected not as much. I'm not sure. But I think in general, as long as we stick to like our core values and culture and filling that need for people, and personally, I'm kind of happy whatever project we're on, right? And I think that goes hand in hand with what Anthony is saying and what you're saying, Matt, is that creating positive cultural change. So we see those shifts, whether it be in architecture and design. We were talking about before we got here, also transit, regional transit, and you could really say all of Colorado, but really the Front Range has its struggles. They want density in certain areas, but in my opinion, that transit system also has to support that density. So yeah, I think in a larger picture, those are all the things we consider. Smaller picture is just, to be a good asset to our clients, to be a great partners with our consultants we work with, really build those networks up and have those trusted partners that when people come to us, they can really feel like we're experts in our field or they can really trust us. I think trust is a big deal for us.
That's a good answer. He's bringing it back down to like here, and I'm way up here. I love that. That's great.
You're the high theory.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
The dreamer.
No, that's awesome. So with that, what kind of projects you on your website, by the way, phenomenal website.
Thank you.
Who does all the writing?
Well,
AI?
we do it together now. We actually put that together pretty early. ChatGPT didn't really become mainstream yet, and I'm looking back like, damn, that took a long time.
It's it's just so thoughtful. So kudos.
We
to you
contracted with a colleague of ours. We office out of the Golden Triangle in Denver, and shout out to the Golden Triangle Creative District. Carlene Clearwater with Kick-Ass Marketing became very close colleague and friend of mine through the work I was doing with them. And one day I just brought her into the office. She met Seth and a few of the other people in the office, and we hit it off, and she helped us write a lot of the information that was really maybe not help write, but actually help us collect our thoughts and really convey the messages we were trying to convey.
That's what I see, because I see all the, how my headspace, and it's just like all over, and I'm like, all right, how do we bring all this together? You bring in the consultants, but what you were able to communicate is really nice.
Wonderful. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But I saw a historic home, right? Talk to me about restoration.
Restoration, yeah.
Another opportunity here.
Yeah. Well, for me, in this community, I would much rather renovate, restore, repurpose than take away our landscape and build a box community. That just, I've said it over and over, that doesn't interest me. What interests me is that let's be conscious of what we're building. And so I saw that on your project or on your site. So tell me a little bit about that part of your business and some project details.
Yeah, and it kind of relates to what I was talking about before about true sustainability in our minds. It's, can we use these existing structures, restore them? We like to say restore in this instance, not to their original, not to their exact, but restore them to modern living standards and keep that balance of the historic context and character. So that was our approach. We initially didn't think or have these historic projects, but we got a few of them through a client we've worked with a few times. And then through that, it's just kind of grown mostly in historic neighborhoods in the Denver proper area. And we've created this relationship with Landmark Commission there, where we're able to work well with them, which is always a daunting process, I would say.
I'm going to say, if you're working well with the Denver Landmark Society, that's...
As well as you can,
Yeah. I mean, as long you don't need to fight them. I mean, there's just a process. It's understanding the process.
Correct.
Right?
It's understanding the process, their guidelines, working with them, taking feedback and making sure you incorporate, comments, because they are making comments to generally keep the neighborhood and give it an ode to the history. And so it's all well-meaning. It's just a whole process to go through, right? Through that, one of our, I'll say longtime friends, approached us and wanted to buy a lot in one of these neighborhoods. And so we kind of did our initial feasibility. We said it looked good. We walked them through the process of like, if you do buy this lot, these are the ramifications. At one point, half a decade ago, they told me they would never live in a house older than 2020 or 2019, right? Which at the time was like only a year old. And so they turned around and they wanted to buy this house that was built in 1879 or 80, I believe.
Yeah.
So obviously that's a big difference there. We worked through the process with them.
So like a feasibility study, like, hey, this is what you can do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be worth going into kind of the general process that maybe makes us a little bit different than a lot of firms. But, I mean, you're talking about the Stout Street project in Curtis Park.
Correct, yeah.
Absolute stunner of a home. The bones, beautiful, large brick masonry, historic building.
Italianate.
Italianate, style. Yeah. And what you were saying, and you can keep diving into that process. It was really interesting too because it's on a prominent corner lot right there by downtown, and we would be on site talking, looking at things, and neighbors would be coming by and just kind of trying to look over like, who are you guys? What are you doing over here? This is amazing. We're so excited. Multiple neighbors had reached out to us directly talking about how they have dreams of their own property right next door. But before I get too far away from Seth's comments, I also wanted to give you an ode to working with the Registered Neighborhood Organization. We know there's a lot of passionate and there's a lot of emotion in those registered neighborhood groups. And you came in and you came out, and it was very friendly, and you made a lot of contacts, and you were able to bring that in that confidence in those relationships and share that with Landmark. You were able to share it with the client. I think having those relationships and having the confidence that everybody is getting along, for better, for worse, is able to make everyone feel better about the larger process.
Yeah, and I mean that's just why I said earlier we are generalists. Because the more I've been in the industry, the more I understand all these hats we have to wear, and one of them is being that mediator.
Yes.
I guess role where you're not only a mediator, maybe sometimes between clients, but also city jurisdiction and clients, or neighborhood organization clients, whatever relationships you want to point out there. And so that is also a big part of the process. And again,
working with so many, because I would say that they're all clients, right? Like absolutely. The historic is a client the
Some different
community,
aspect.
registered community association, your client, and being able to say, okay, how do I work in harmony with all these different needs or opinions or comments? And yeah, it's not easy.
Right.
No.
So
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's quite a process. So yeah, initial feasibility, really understanding what you can do on the lot. Not necessarily in this case just zoning, right? Historic requirements as well of what they're going to require you to restore, replace, or tear down altogether. So we were able to keep 90% of what was there. There was just a small addition on the back that was actually built in the 1950s that they considered a non-contributing structure to historic. So we took that off. The whole scope was basically renovating the first and second floors that were there. When I say renovate, I mean take it down to the studs, rework the floor plan. It originally had an attic. The clients, one of them is very into landscaping and plants. And so they wanted to incorporate some type of rooftop situation. In this case, it ended up being like a sunroom solarium and a greenhouse up there. So that was the added third floor. That used to be the attic. Redid part of the basement, added on a new basement and a first floor addition.
did you have to replace the entire foundation?
We did not. We were actually able to repair it. We had a structural engineer do a forensic study beforehand, and they did a report telling us what needed to be repaired, what needed to be replaced, things like that.
Minimal underpinning.
Correct, yes. And honestly, most of what was there was in decent shape. It just took some repairs. And yeah, I keep pointing back, but it really ties into that sustainability aspect of like, if we can reuse these foundations that are hundreds of years old, right, your carbon footprint is a lot less in that aspect. So I think to me, that's what the true side of sustainability comes in.
And the clients love the opportunity of showing the existing structure too. I think that was almost the initial draw of moving from, we want a nice modern new home with new modern wellness built into that home, and then saying, wait, we can do that with a historic structure. Yeah.
And so throughout the design process, it was this balance of, we don't want to come in here, we do want an open floor plan, but not completely open, because that's not the original character of the home, right? So we like to call it defined spaces that flow together. And we were able to incorporate, an original masonry arch right in the center of the home itself. That's between the living room and the library. And I think those type of touches, you could kind of go on as a list, really brought in that character that people want to see in these type of homes, but it's still open enough, it flows enough to really capture that modern living that they were going for.
And that's not easy work at all.
Oh, no.
So
it was a challenge.
It was an absolute
for
challenge.
me, I think about, man, I want like a 62 Ford Bronco, and I want to restore it myself. Now you can just go buy one that's done to current standard, that's totally new, and you're like, but no, this is let's do a frame off restoration on this.
Yeah.
It's just so much work.
Oh yeah.
But it is rewarding. It's cool.
Yeah. And that's, as a slight caveat, but related, like that's what I would tell potential clients if you're looking at a project like this is, in some ways it is Pandora's box. And you just have to be we'll do as much as we can to prepare, but until you open those walls of a 150-year-old house, we don't know what's exactly there. And I think these clients were a great example of having the flexibility and, passionate enough about the original house that we were able to get that good balance of not opening something up and being like, well, just tear it all out, but being able to utilize that in our design and make it be a character piece.
Absolutely.
So yeah, went through that whole process, finally got approved. We actually, for time frame standards with doing historical and building permitting, I thought we did pretty good. I think it was right around 10 months, 10 to 11 months for both, which...
So set your expectations of your clients early on.
Right.
Yes.
And then, it's been under construction for a little over a year now. It's supposed to finish up next month. Yeah. So right in the final stages, the finishes, I think it's turning out pretty well.
So in your architectural process, do you guys support the interior design selections as well?
We do. We have that option for clients. We don't do it with every client, just to, some come with their own interior designers. But we do offer it as a resource. And we're able to streamline that process where we work with curated vendors that we have trusted relationships with, and we know, based on project budgets, which ones we're going to use and which ones we aren't going to use, just to save the client headaches of they love this material, but it's actually twice the price that they wanted to spend on it. So.
Yep. I think, and just to go back and highlight kind of some difference makers here, talking about the feasibility study and then how these phases, the architectural process, pretty standard from schematic design through permitting and then construction administration. One of the big difference makers that we focused on, and using Stout Street and Curtis Park here as an example, is that feasibility. Really studying so that we can put the red flag up everywhere we see it could happen beforehand. It's not so much an exercise that's so necessary for us to make sure that we do it correctly. It is, but it's actually more valuable to the client, and really setting expectations and establishing a perceived cadence of what this project is going to look like for them. It provides them an exit strategy if it's too much, right? It provides them enough understanding of the external forces working against convenience, and that's what everyone's looking for.
Yeah, and I would say that's where we get, hopefully, as close as you can get foresight as 2020 instead of hindsight being 2020.
Yes.
Because we want to put everything out on the table to where 99% of things are, okay, we knew this was going to happen. This is how we approach it if it comes up. You can't do everything, but as close to that.
And that's a deliverable. It's a nice book, little packet that we give to our clients so that they can review it and reference it throughout the lifetime of the project as well.
On those specific projects, talk to me about your construction administration, because I could just see, okay, we got the plans, the customer, the interior designer, your architectural detailing. How often were you on site to support, and how good was the team?
Yeah. Well, construction administration is almost a non-negotiable at that point. For projects of that complexity, it's hard for us to even take a project on if we are being asked to not have any CA involved in that project.
And that piece especially, I think it's educating clients about why it's important. Because we'll spend hours and hours together with clients designing this, curating it to their vision. They have to sign off on it before we move forward. So it's really their stamp of approval is on the plans that got approved. And we really view it as okay, this is their trust passing along to the builder, but we have to make sure it gets executed all the way through. So that's why we think construction administration is so important, is it's really all that time spent and the results happen in construction.
Because I think in that historic restoration environment, you have so many other layers of conversations to the point where you have plans. And then we get in there and you'd be like, oh, we can actually, they said this, we can do that now. Look at how this is laying out, and bring that design to. Yeah.
So with this project specifically, we're there weekly.
Yeah.
Honestly, which we like to do because we also want to see this project come to its fruition. I think it's going to be a really good asset and gem in the neighborhood. The project team has been really great. Again, with this type of project that's not so cut and dry of, we had a blank lot. We can pour our own foundation. We create everything ourselves. Some of it's already created for us. And it's kind of, in some ways, a reactionary design of, okay, the building is in place, the main building, how do we design around it to where the character is still there, the history is still there, but we set it up to how our clients want to live in it. And that was that Pandora's box case where, some areas we opened up, all right, we have to change this part of the design. But I think the team was really there and really willing to work and be flexible to make it a really well-executed design.
How do you think your clients are doing?
They're excited.
Yeah.
They're very excited.
Excited.
The build process, the design process, the permitting process, it takes time. It takes time, and that wears on everybody. That wears on the project team, both clients and professionals that are working in the team. I would say the flexibility piece is a large component. Overall, the trajectory of the project and the sentiment towards it has been very positive. So we're very pleased and happy and feel very honored to be a part of that team.
Yeah, and I think this team, in regards to the client specifically, we had good communication prior to the project and during design that, things would come up, that they have been really great clients to work with as far as being flexible, understanding like details that need to be done, understanding, okay, when we open this wall, it wasn't what we thought. How can we rework this? And do you like this? And being quick to respond. So I do think, as I said before, it takes a special type of client to like approach this project and fully understand the ramifications of what happens throughout the process.
When did you guys bring the builder in to the design phase?
In general, we like to bring the builder on during schematic design.
So fairly early.
Fairly early. Maybe not the first iteration, because sometimes the first iteration gets changed enough to where we don't want to waste people's time, right? Yeah. But usually about the second iteration, I think that was when we started looking at different builders for this project. And the client was really active in that as well. Like they wanted to interview a couple that had worked on specific houses in this era, just because they know how they're built, how the walls go together, things like that. And then they also wanted to talk to other builders that maybe didn't have the experience but had done great projects in the Front Range. So there was a little bit of an elongated interview process with this, but we finally landed on one that we've worked on multiple projects in general, but also historic projects to where they could understand both sides. And, they've worked with tight budgets. This one wasn't as tight of a budget, but understanding how to work with a tight budget, I think, is really important as well. So yeah, pretty early in the process. And I think that just goes back to our ties with design build. I think having an integrated team is really important. Having a full understanding of what was talked about in design for the builder is really important. And so it's crucial for us, I think, to have successful projects for a builder to come on fairly early in the process.
It was good. Another component for this project specifically, where the builder was able to communicate at a high enough level to the municipality whenever the builder needed to. And from design, understanding that integration and upskill from the whole team was able to be exemplified in communications that were happening in silos potentially with municipality, landmark, which was a huge success. We actually knew the reviewers from previous projects, which probably helped, but keep a good reputation.
Yeah. All right. So you do the restoration, the historic work. You guys also do some awesome luxury custom home architecture and design. Tell me about that journey, where you guys do that, and what you love about that.
Well, specifically, I won't speak for both of this, but I think we both enjoy this part, is really engaging with clients personally and understanding that we're designing a space that they'll be in daily and will affect like mental well-being, so like all of these aspects of their life, and hopefully having a positive impact on that piece. So as far as single family custom and restoration, whatever, renovation, whatever you want to call it there, I think that's one of the large important aspects. For me at least, Anthony can add on to it, but I really like working with clients and having that personal relationship with them. And hopefully, like I said, having a positive impact there. And I think that's just always been my approach at whatever business I've been a part of, but I really wanted to hope that we integrate in Catalyst is having that, positive change culturally, internally, but externally as well, where our clients really feel heard, we see their vision, and we're able to execute that vision on the design side, and then pair with a team of experts to actually get it built in the real world. Yeah. I think that answered your question.
Yeah. I think so. And I think I'm just going to soundboard off of that, because you're exactly right. I think there's a lot of pride in taking on challenge. And when we look back on our lives, however many years from now, understanding that this project specifically was certainly a challenge and not the easiest route, but having the pride in having overcome that challenge and that being a part of your life for the remainder of the time that you inhabit that space is going to be a very positive memory. So yeah, I mean, we, very excited and happy with where that project turned out. Trying to think of like other things. I mean, it's funny too, because we spent time working on a historic renovation in the Baker neighborhood before this project. It was almost like a little layup compared to this one, right? But it was challenging nonetheless. We learned so much on a smaller project before. It was almost like crawl before you run or walk before you run. We were able to make relationships with the municipality on this other project, and that rolled straight into this next project. But we found ourselves kind of approaching these historic homes almost happenstance. I think there's this happened, early 2024, late 2023. Things started shifting. People started looking for opportunities in other places, and that led us down, a couple successful projects in the historic area, and now we got the skills to do it. So we're geared up and ready to keep taking on historic projects.
Yeah, love it. How do people find Catalyst?
Well, you can call Seth directly. His cell phone is
8675309.
Yeah.
Catalyst Architecture Planning and Development can be found online at www.catalyst-arch.com. You can follow us on Instagram or reach out directly and find us on Google.
Now, did you say something that you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah, we are looking at starting a YouTube channel. So we're in the
keep
process.
An eye out for it.
In the process of filming 3 highlight projects, varying project types: historic renovation in urban infill, spec development in East Wash Park, and mountain residence in Creed, Colorado.
Oh, Creed. Ooh, I
Beautiful.
love Creed.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. No, that's awesome. All right, and then use all the LLMs and ask for an awesome architect
Yes.
in Denver. You guys come right up.
Awesome.
5 stars.
Yeah.
First
5
one.
stars. First one. Yeah, thank you guys very
You
much.
bet.
Yeah, thank you.